All right, so this is Mr. Wyrick. I'm going to go through each section of the review, talk about some stuff, talk about what you can do for the test tomorrow. This first section here is talking about the discriminant. The discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. It's what's under the square root. Okay, so all we do is 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 25 on this first one. That's 100 plus 100. That's 200. Since we got a positive number, that means on number 1, it's going to be 2 real solutions. All the rest of them are going to go like this. This is going to be 16 minus 4 times 1. That's 16 minus 16, which is 0. If you get 0, there's 1 real solution. We have this in the notes. If you get a positive number, there's 2 real solutions. If you get 0, there's 1 real solution. If you get a negative, there's 2 imaginary or 2 complex. This is going to be like a multiple choice part of the test. So you just do the discriminant. You can type it into the calculator, see what it comes up. Positive number, 0, negative number, and that'll determine what you're supposed to select from the multiple choice. If I can find one here. Yeah, it'd be actually this one right here. 3 squared is 9 minus 4 times 1 times 4. That'd be 9 minus 16, which is a negative 7. That's going to be 2 imaginary solutions. And that's all it's asking for. It doesn't ask you to find the solutions. It doesn't ask you to do all the work and figure everything out. It's just, what's the discriminant and what does that tell you about what we're doing? On the next part, the MAD method. That stands for multiply, add, divide, and denominator. Multiply is this. You multiply the A value by that C value. We get a negative 60 when we take 12 times negative 5. Then what's going to multiply together to make negative 60, add together to make negative 4. That's going to be a negative 10 and a positive 6. When we multiply them, we get negative 60. When we add them, we get negative 4. So the next thing that we're going to do is write those like those are our factors. X minus 10, x plus 6. We're going to put those over our A value. This is the divide. Put that over 12. If we can reduce that fraction, we do. That's x minus 5/6 and x plus 1/2. And then when it doesn't fit, we're going to move it forward and make it to the coefficient. This is our denominator, so that's that second D. You check the denominator. So we've got 6x minus 5, and we've got 2x plus 1. When we go to solve it, we just set both of these equal to 0. But it's actually easier to look back here at where you had it as a fraction, because the opposite of that fraction is going to be the answer. It's going to be 5/6, and it's going to be 1/2, negative. Okay? Because those are the things that when you put them in, they'll make 0. If you are not good at factoring, if you cannot remember this method, this is a multiple choice test. It's not necessarily going to ask you what are the factors. It's going to say what are the solutions. So if you can't remember this, but you can remember the quadratic formula, work it with the quadratic formula. You should get the exact same answer. It's just that factoring is usually quicker than, actually trying to work the whole quadratic out. I will, but this is just for the video, so I'm trying to keep it short. Okay, down on the next part, the quadratic formula, using the quadratic formula to solve. The quadratic formula, I'm probably going to write it on the board anyway, but it's negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I should scoot that over because you can't see it, but that's what it looks like. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Say it over and over again until it echoes in your brain, because if you can memorize that, that might be all you need on the test. This is A, this is B, this is C. So it's a negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times 12 times negative 5 all over 2 times 12. Now, at this point, when you have this, with these numbers all substituted in, you can literally type this into the calculator. Control divide will get you a fraction form to start putting it in. Control and the x squared button will give you a square root. This will give you the answer. If you are supposed to reduce this, it'll give you a decimal answer, but you can check those multiple choice answers and see which one comes up to the same decimal. So there's a way to check your answers on this. This would be negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 plus 5 times 4 is 20 times that is 240 all over 2 times 12 is 24. 16 plus 240 is 256. That's negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 256 all over 24. The square root of 256 is 16. Just 16. Not 16 still under the square root. Like if you type in the square root of 256, then it's just 16. That's negative 4 plus 16 over 24 and negative 4 minus 16. That's what that plus or minus means, is you're going to do both of them. Negative 4 plus 16 is 12 over 24, which means 1/2 is one of my answers. Negative 4 minus 16 over 24 is a negative 20 over 24. That would be a negative 10 over 12 or a negative 5 over 6. Now, if you're working in the calculator, this is going to be giant. Hopefully it works. Okay, if you are working in the calculator, once this comes up, you can be working in the scratch pad or you can be working in a document. It's better for me if you do the work in a document. That way, you're not leaving answers behind for another class, especially since the odds of them getting the exact same form as you did on the test, because there's 4 different versions, are pretty slim. Like, I don't want somebody to try to copy down your answer and like not know why it's not working. Well, it's not working because you got a different version of the test, dude. It's not the numbers that you have. Okay, here we go. Spin, spin, spin. Come on, calculator, you're killing me here. Okay, so we go to calculate. Again, control divide. That gives me my fraction format. Make this a little darker so maybe we can see it. It's negative 4 plus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times 12 times negative 5 all over 2 times 12. Woo, I don't know why that squared got in there. Sorry about that. That should not be there. Okay? Minus 4 times 12 times negative 5. There we go. Okay? That's the way that should look. I can't do both plus and minus at the same time. So I just have the plus. If it's supposed to be a negative under here and you're squaring it, don't make it a negative. It'll mess with the calculations and it doesn't matter anyway. A negative 4 squared is 16 and a positive 4 squared is 16. What?
What'd you press to make it like that where you can actually like put the problem in and enter and it works?
Control divide gives you that fraction setup. Once I type that in, there it is, 1/2. That was one of the answers I got. If I scroll up and I change that plus to a minus, I get negative 5/6, the other answer that I got. It is possible to do this in the calculator if you can just remember the formula and fill it in.
How do you copy and paste that?
Oh, to copy and paste, you just scroll up until it's highlighted and then hit enter, and it copies the exact same thing down. So if you just mess up one number, you can scroll back up to it and be like, oh, this is why none of my answers match, but you don't have to type in the whole thing again. Just go up until it's highlighted, hit enter, it copies it down, and you can change whatever number you messed up. Okay, so there's that. That's quadratic formula. Make sure, like on this last one, it doesn't equal 0. So you'll add 4x and add 4x before you try to solve that one out. On the next section, which of the following shows an equation for which the quadratic equation would yield this? Basically, it's saying put it in. This is a -7, and it's supposed to be negative b, which means it has to be a positive 7. That would be either A or D. C and B are both wrong. And then it would be b squared. 7 squared is 49, minus 4 times 1 times 2. In order for it to be minus, that -2 can't still be there, or it has to be a -5 and a -2, so D is going to be my answer.
Wait, why is it D?
If you look at the bottom, that's -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. If I did a, 2 times 5 would be a positive 10. 2 times a -5 would be a -10, and it's a -10 on the bottom. Same kind of thing with number 20. The solutions when it's already factored is just what's going to make it into 0. If x minus 4 is 0, x is 4. If x plus 7 is 0, x is -7. All you have to do is change the sign. What are the solutions of this? It's going to multiply to a -45 and add to 4. That's x plus 9 and x minus 5. That means my solutions are a -9 and a positive 5. Okay? On this, the x-intercepts, the solutions, the roots, the zeros, all of these mean the exact same thing. They're all synonyms. It's where we cross the x-axis. So no matter what it's labeled as on the question, you're looking for the exact same thing. These pictures relate to the discriminant. If your discriminant is a positive number, you have 2 real answers. It touches in 2 places. If your discriminant is 0, it's tangent. It touches in just that one place. If your discriminant is a negative number, where does this graph cross this line? It doesn't do it. It's imaginary. That's why we have the 2 imaginary solutions. It would totally cross here and here. Well, it doesn't. Okay? And then at the end, simplifying expressions. If you're adding and subtracting with I, all you have to do is add and subtract the like terms. A -1 and a -4 make a -5. A positive 6 and a positive 2 make a positive 8, I. Goody. Okay? When we get to like number 3, we just multiply. -6 times -6 is a positive 36. I times I is I squared. But I squared is a -1. So I have 36 times -1. That makes a -36. And then when you get down here to number 4, you have to make the boxes. You're going to multiply this out. 2 plus 5i, -1 plus 5i. 2 times -1 is -2. 2 times 5i is 10i. -1 times 5i is minus 5i. And 5i times 5i is 25i squared. I squared is going to make this 25 times -1, which means that's going to make it a -25. Now I go back to combining like terms. I've got -2 plus 10i minus 5i minus 25. So the -2 and the -25 will make -27. And then the positive 10i minus 5i makes plus 5i. That is my answer. Okay, there's not a real shortcut on that one. There's not much you can do calculator-wise, except for check each individual multiplication. That's where we are. Okay, if you got any other questions on how any of this stuff works, make sure to check in tutorials, and I'll try to get this whole thing finished out and posted by the end of the day today.